everyone. My name's Sanaida Reyes. I'm the Assistant Director of Admission here at Scripps College. So in today's session, we will kind of be talking more about pre-law at a liberal arts college. And we have our two speakers here with us today. So I'll let them go ahead and introduce themselves.
I'll go ahead and I'll get started. My name is Belinda Lee. It's great to be with you all today. I am the Associate Director of Career Planning and Resources here at Scripps. And just a little note about my life right now. I am, at home here in Pasadena, California with my 6-year-old in the house, and it's always possible with a 6-year-old that she can come in. So we'll see. She's, I think, happy playing with her My Little Ponies right now, but if I get interrupted, apologies in advance.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you for joining us. So my name's Abby. I'm a senior at Scripps and a senior admission ambassador for the Office of Admission.
Great. So we'll go ahead and get started then. For questions, we'll have them, you all submit them in the Q&A session, but that'll be towards the end. So if you have any questions, just make sure you wait to the end. But we'll go ahead and let Belinda and Abby get started. So we'll leave it both to you all. I will turn off my screen, so it'll just be used to right now. If you have questions, let us know.
Great, thank you so much, Selena. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna share my screen and bring up the presentation that Abby and I will be giving. So we are here today to talk with you all about how liberal arts colleges are a great fit for pre-law students. I was so excited to be invited to do this presentation, and especially when I realized that Abby and I could do it together. And so maybe we can tell you a little bit more about ourselves and kind of why we're standing here in front of you on our Zoom computers today. All right, let me advance the slides. There we go. So again, just to tell you a little bit more about ourselves, my name is Belinda Lee. I am here because in my role as Associate Director of Career Planning and Resources, I am also the pre-law liaison for the Career Center. And so basically what that means is that the college has invested in some professional development for me to go to conferences and meetings and have the opportunity to meet with law schools and law school admissions directors and deans. And I've had the opportunity to meet with many advisors and deans and directors over the course of the last few years and learn a lot. And learn a lot about what they're looking for in pre-law students also, which I've been really excited to bring back to Scripps. So I've been at Scripps for 14 years. It'll be 15 this April, which, is a milestone I'm looking forward to. It's been a really great place for me professionally. Just in case any of you on the call are feeling sort of unsure about your own path, that's okay. I changed majors 3 times my first year in college and still managed to finish in 4 years, so it's totally possible. And just a little bit of personal information about me. So during, this whole COVID time, the personal random thing I've been working on is latte art, and I am not as good as I should be for the amount of time I've invested in it. But that's a little bit more about me.
Awesome. And so just a little bit more about myself. So as I said, I'm a senior at Scripps. I'm from Chicago, so an out-of-state student. I'm dual majoring in Chicanx Latinx Studies and Latin American and Caribbean Studies on the pre-law track. All of which I had no intention of doing going into undergrad. So again, as Belinda said, I also changed majors. I was into politics and then anthropology, and so all over the place as well, maybe sociology as well. And even pre-law as a track, I kind of learned about it and more about myself and how I found myself, wanting to pursue this during my first few years at Scripps. So definitely not something that you need to know going into undergrad, but if you do, great. And then some things that I'm a part of on campus. So some of them being Café con Leche, which is the Latinx affinity group for students on campus. I'm also a part of Res Life, SCORE, which is our social justice center on campus. I've worked at Tiernan Fieldhouse, which is our kind of health and wellness center, the Motley, an awesome coffee place on campus, and then some clubs like First Generation at Scripps, Prison Abolition Club, and Chiapas Support Committee.
And so I think what I'm so excited about in giving this presentation with Abby is that you are going to get both perspectives. So you're going to get the perspective from me, who's, worked in the in a full-time professional role at Scripps supporting students through the pre-law track, and Abby, who is on that track. And so you're really going to get to hear from both of us, from the people who have experience working with the people who would admit law students, as well as someone who's wanting to do it themselves. So when I was, thinking about when Abby and I were talking about this workshop, I don't know, like it seems like a very cliche kind of thing to come back to talking about definitions, but I find that it was helpful for me in thinking about, this session. And so Wikipedia is not necessarily the best source for everything, but I really liked this description of law that they have, which says the law shapes politics, economics, history, and society in various ways and serves as a mediator of relations between people. And so if you look at that, my goodness, that sounds liberal artsy, right? Like there are so many different aspects that are really covered in liberal arts. And so what more perfect place to prepare yourself for a career in law or for law school than a liberal arts college. So I'm realizing I'm having to use this. There we go. So we want to kind of first talk you through like what law schools want. So if you know that you want to go to law school, it's important to think about like, okay, so what kinds of skills or qualities or abilities are law schools looking for? And then what does receiving those things from a liberal arts college look like? So the first thing that I've heard again and again and again from law schools is that it's incredibly important to have the ability to think critically. To take a step more specific than even just liberal arts colleges here and to talk about Scripps. So Ellen Browning Scripps founded the college when she was 89. Can you imagine that? So she, and here you'll see Hunold Gate, which is one of our main entrances to campus. And you'll see this quotation from Ellen Browning Scripps engraved on your way into campus. And it says, the paramount obligation of a college is to develop in its students the ability to think clearly and independently and the ability to live confidently, courageously, and hopefully. I've read those words so many times over the last 15 years and they still give me chills when I read them because I believe so deeply in them. And if law schools are looking for independent critical thought, like that is at the very core of what liberal arts colleges and Scripps specifically really is looking for. In addition to things like thinking critically, interdisciplinary thinking. Well, Abby, was there anything that you wanted to say about thinking critically first before I kind of move on? Sorry, I got excited.
You're good. If you want to talk about interdisciplinary thinking, just because I think those two go so well together, and then I can jump in and give the student perspective.
Great, fantastic, thank you. So, I don't know, law is always at the intersection of something. Like when you're thinking about law, like it's at the intersection of, business or criminal justice, or like law really does not ever exist within its own silo. And so it's always about at least two things at the same time. And so Abby is going to talk a little bit more about how that kind of incorporates into the educational experience at Scripps.
Yeah, definitely. So, so how these two kind of things apply to my experience. So I think interdisciplinary learning is a core foundation of Scripps academics and, how students apply themselves both inside and outside of the classroom. What I really love about Scripps students and liberal arts colleges is that it attracts students that are passionate about so many different subjects. I know coming in, I love music, I love arts, I love sociology, I love politics. And so it was really nice to know that I didn't have to only choose one of those. And Scripps really kind of hones in on this idea that you can't really hone in on just one because they're all connected. And so it's really nice to be able to kind of experience that in all of the classes that I've taken. So whether I'm in a history class, I'm also learning about it through like a politics perspective or a sociology perspective. And within all of these classes, I'm also kind of pushed to think critically. It's not I'm not coming into a classroom and expected to be lectured at by a professor and then tested on whether I can regurgitate all this information back to them. But instead, I come in with my classmates and we're given a reading and we sit down with the professor in like a circle discussion. And, we're not only learning from the professor, but from my peers as well. And so it's really great to kind of be challenged in that way and know that not everything is rigid and kind of has different aspects that we should always consider. And so it's amazing to be able to kind of sit in on all of my classes and be able to bring things from different disciplines that I've learned from past classes or am currently learning just as a student with my own experiences.
Thank you, Abby. So the next thing that I keep hearing over and over and over again from law school admissions folks is how important writing skills are. In law school is so much about reading and writing and reading and writing and reading and writing on and on forever. And so that's something, that students can demonstrate in their personal statements, but also through taking coursework that is heavy in writing, which Abby can talk a little bit more about and what that looks like for her at Scripps.
Yeah, definitely. So I think right away, as soon as I kind of took my first kind of Scripps course, I was pushed to stray away from what I thought writing was in high school. And it's really amazing. I think I've been given the chance to really develop skills that I had and kind of knew, but really work on them. And so, especially as a humanities major, I think writing has just become an everyday kind of portion of all of my classes. And so, through my classes and my professors, and just like the Scripps curriculum in general, we're really pushed to kind of bring in these new analytical skills and the ability to think critically in the way that we're expressing, everything that we're thinking through the readings, through lectures that we've heard, into these beautifully produced papers that then kind of help us better prepare for senior thesis, which every student has to write. And so we're kind of prepared through however many classes we've taken in our four years at Scripps to develop this sometimes 30 to 70 page paper on a topic that each student is passionate about. And and we get to kind of exemplify all of the skills throughout our class.
Thank you for that, Abby. The next item that I hear again and again is being important is strong letters of recommendation. So these are probably things that you're familiar with thinking about college applications. And so when students ask me, what's really important in letters of recommendation, who are the people that should be writing those letters, my answer is that it's important to get people who know you well. So again, I'm going to toss this back to Abby to talk about how that can play out here.
Yeah, definitely. So again, one of the great things about going to a liberal arts college is the size, and that definitely holds true to Scripps and the Claremont colleges in general. And so all of my classes have been no larger than I think 25 students. And my smallest class that I'm taking right now is with a professor and another student, so they can get pretty intimate. But the great thing about that is, you really get to develop relationships with your professors. And after the first couple of classes, your professors start to recognize you by name, or at least recognize your face on campus. And so when you walk by, they say hello. And so it's really awesome to be able to develop those kinds of relationships. And so I've been able to, outside of the classroom, continue to work with professors on different personal projects that they were interested in, or they've been able to help me make connections with other professors across the campuses. And so it's really great to kind of turn these relationships into more of a mentor-mentee kind of style between us. And so I think that's one of the great benefits of going to a small school like Scripps.
Absolutely. And got to meet my daughter Matilda there for a moment. Thank you for acknowledging her. You might still hear her in the background a little bit. And that is life, and that is okay. So in addition to strong letters of recommendation, the final thing that I have on this list is a strong personal statement. And so, you know, high school students are familiar with personal statements in terms of having to prepare them for college. They're hard in writing statements for college, and they are also hard in preparing for law school. But, you know, if you're at Scripps, you got me and you got the Career Center to support you through that. And so I'll let Abby talk a little bit more about that too.
Yeah, and what's great, I don't know if we mentioned this in the beginning, but Belinda and I are actually working together, or have been working together for the past couple of months on developing a personal statement for myself and what that looks like. And I remember when I first set up my first meeting with her, I was completely lost, did not know what I was going to write on. And what was really great is the first couple of meetings that I took with her, we just talked. We didn't even think about, you know, writing and like what the format was going to be, how many pages, like any of that. She just, you know, we got to know each other. She got to learn more about me and like my passions and why law for me and what I'm interested in. And so, again, getting that kind of personalized attention by, I think, going to a small school like Scripps and having access to these resources. But also in terms of just being able to develop my personal statement, I think what's great about going to a school like Scripps is, and a liberal arts college in general, is you really get to exemplify a lot of the passions that you come in with through, you know, various platforms that you want to take on. And so for me, you know, that sometimes looks like sitting on the board of a club that I'm passionate about, or helping create a workshop, or trying to bring in different speakers. And so I think it really helps, especially kind of showcase to law schools, like, this is what I'm passionate about. And in these 4 years at Scripps, I've been able to kind of exemplify that and show that and take on, you know, these various forms of leadership to show that, and want to continue to do that through law school, or, you know, whatever that path may be after for undergrad. But definitely one of the benefits.
Yeah, I will just echo that. I mean, there are so many ways to get involved at Scripps, and there are so many ways to take on leadership roles, and leadership roles meaning like leadership in lots of different ways. Like, being a leader doesn't just mean being the president of a club. You know, leadership can take many, many different forms. It can take, you know, I'm working with a student who, as a sophomore, was managing a research lab for one of her professors. I worked with a student a number of years ago who had an internship in the Los Angeles mayor's office. And, you know, she was struggling to figure out what to write on her resume. It was a resume I was working on with a student. And as we were talking, and I was like, okay, let's just talk. Kind of like Abby was saying, like, let's just talk and let's learn about what you did. Tell me about what you did for the mayor's office. And she's like, well, you know, I answered phones and I got coffee. Okay. What else did you do? Well, I organized a press conference for the mayor. Like, I'm sorry, what? And that wasn't on her resume, you know. And I think sometimes because you do the things that you do, it's really easy to forget about how those things are unique to you. And so that's part of the fun of my job, is getting to spend that deeper time getting to know students and getting to know their personal reasons for wanting to do the things that they want to do, and helping them find and use their voice to articulate those things. One of the things that I really love about being a career counselor at Scripps, I mean, there are many. I mean, Abby clearly is one of them. But there, you know, like, there is no official limit to how many sessions we can have together. So we will just keep working together as long as it takes to get you feeling good about the things that you need to feel good about. And we will start anywhere with you with that process. And so if that's a giant question mark shrug emoji of like law school, right? Like, that is an acceptable reason to set up an appointment with a career center. And we will just keep working through that shrug emoji until you know, figure out what those intentional decisions are that you want to make for yourself. And if they're law school, we'll, you know, I'll help you get all of these things into your personal statement and into your resume and into your experiences. So we've just spent some time talking about what law schools want. I think it is also useful to spend a little bit of time talking about what they don't care about. We don't have a ton of people on the call right now, actually, but if anyone on the call right now is like, has any ideas or brainstorms about things that maybe law schools that don't matter or matter less to law schools. I'd be curious to hear your ideas. So feel free to either just pop them in the Q&A box or maybe pop them in the Q&A box. Maybe while we wait just to see if anyone has any ideas. Abby, did you, just not to put you on the spot, but like, was there anything that you thought that maybe wouldn't matter to law schools?
I feel like, I'm trying not to give away the next slide too. Um, I think there was a thing, but
Oh, there's one.
I can share after too, if not.
So this person said like law schools don't care about a student's background. And so in the sense that like students from many, many, many different kinds of backgrounds are welcomed in law school. Yeah, I mean, law schools are looking to build a diverse class with many different types of people. You know, I think a boring law school would be a bunch of students from exactly the same background. And so there is not one specific way to be a pre-law student to get into law school. There's no one like cookie cutter way to go in. And so in that sense, that's absolutely true. I totally interrupted you though, Abby. Was there anything you wanted to say? I could also just go on to the next slide.
You can go on. I think I was going to say what's on the slide, so go ahead.
Oh, perfect. Okay, great. So I'll just go. So one of the things that law schools don't care about for realsies is your major. Just doesn't matter. They don't care. I think that this, especially for students who might come from like my own kind of personal family experience, knowledge background was more in the healthcare area where, you know, there are very specific prerequisite classes that you have to have. A lot of people end up majoring in science, for example, to go into pre-health, but for law, it doesn't matter. Legitimately doesn't matter. There are no specific pre-law classes. And so again, like classes that get you experience writing and with critical thinking are helpful, but you can get those things in many, many different kinds of majors. And at Scripps, every single student is writing a thesis. And so every single Scripps student, regardless of your major, is getting some pretty serious writing experience. The other thing that I think is pretty surprising to a lot of people that law schools don't care about is like any specific kind of pre-law experience. And so you don't even have to have had like specific legal internships, right? Like, again, law is super interdisciplinary. And so if you came into an interest in law because of an interest in activism, if you have a lot of activism experience, that's useful and helpful and good prep for law school. And so if you have that experience, great. I think like what law schools want to know is that you are clear about how law school fits into your story. Like, how is law school going to be the bridge that will get you to where you want to go? How does that fit into your story? And so whatever experience you need to get you to answer that question intentionally is enough. And it doesn't need to be experience at a law firm to get that experience for you. All right, so we'll talk a little bit now about why Scripps. I think, Abby, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I'll take lead on this slide. Just to talk a little bit about more, I guess just honing in on what it truly means to be pre-law at Scripps and the resources that I found helpful as a pre-law student at the Claremont colleges and Scripps specifically. And so one definitely being the 5C Consortium. What's great is that when you're accepted into one school, you're kind of getting you're getting 4 other free schools on top of it. And so it's really awesome to be able to take advantage of the other resources and that the other schools have to offer. So one of them definitely being able to take classes at the other schools. And so through that, I've been able to meet different professors and like, in my experience, one of those professors is writing me a letter of rec. So she goes to Pomona. And so because of the Claremont College Consortium, I was able to take her classes. I think I've taken like 4 or 5, but really developed those relationships with her, a close relationship with her, and now have her be one of my recommenders. It's also awesome to have exposure to just the different CLORGs, which are clubs and organizations at the Claremont colleges. And so just showing, again, involvement in clubs or things that you're passionate about, projects that you're passionate about at a larger level. what's also awesome is that you get to take advantage of the career centers on the other campuses. And so I know that as a pre-law student, I get emails for any events that Scripps is specifically hosting, but also any events that Pomona or Pitzer or Claremont McKenna or Harvey Mudd might be hosting. And so it's really great to be able to, if law schools are visiting Pomona, I get to go and take advantage of that information session and any events that are happening. And then we also have a pre-law advisor and pre-law liaison. So we do have, so Belinda being one of them. And then we also have a professor on campus. Her name is Dr. Jennifer Groskup. And so she got her JD and PhD. And so really awesome to get both. But again, being able to use her as a resource and, gain more experience on what law school was like for her, given that she went through it, and have her perspective on it. She also provides a lot of research opportunities for students who are interested in pursuing that kind of route. That has to do a lot with, so she's a professor in psychology, so it has to do a lot with how psychology and law intersect, which was really awesome. I've heard great things about her classes. And then again, just funding opportunities that I've been able to take advantage of. And so personally, studying for the LSAT was kind of a burden, and I think is a burden for a lot of students, especially when you don't have access to getting an LSAT prep course. I think they cost like thousands of dollars. And so what's really great is that Scripps provides different outlets to apply for funding. And so I was able to apply for funding and get money to fund some LSAT prep books that I was able to get to self-study. There's also internship grants that you can take advantage of through CPNR if you want to, take advantage of an internship going on during the summer, or different like travel stipends. So if you have an internship during the school year, or when we were in school on campus and needed to commute, you can apply for these kinds of travel stipends to offset any of those costs.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even as the pre-law liaison for the office, like it is, going back to the Claremont College's Career Center, it's exceptionally helpful for me to have my colleagues, because like if there's a question that I can't answer, I can just go to my colleagues at one of the other colleges and be like, what is this? What is this like? What do I do? And someone at the campuses will be able to provide support. So we have like a very close relationship with one another. And, there's also this year a really active Pre-Law Society at Scripps. So for example, tomorrow, the Pre-Law Society at Scripps themselves has organized a panel of alums who are in law school right now. And so there are people at, I think, Berkeley and I don't remember the other schools, good schools, who are going to be talking about their own experiences and what it was like, to go to law school after attending Scripps. And that's just something we're helping to advertise, but it's something that is entirely organized by students. And so again, that's another opportunity for leadership and growth and learning that students are taking advantage of here.